Welcome to episode 21 of They Might Be Self-Aware. We're back, and we're of legal drinking age, at least in the United States. So,
Podcast has been going to Canada for the last couple of episodes.
And I am Hunter Powers, joined by none other than
Daniel Bishop.
Hello, Daniel Bishop.
Hello,
Today
Hunter Powers.
on the show, we are discussing threading the needle of camera privacy concerns.
Also, when our brains can detect AI-generated material, but sometimes they don't.
If only I had a brain. Al Michaels, you remember him? Well, he's peering deeply into your soul, whether you like it or not, and he's going to tell you all about it at 10 with his AI Olympic coverage.
The AI Clone Wars are coming for social networks. You're going to be there. People you make are going to be there. Sometimes real people will be there.
And finally, does artificial general intelligence end in simulation theory? Does anything really exist? Well, crack one open, because you are listening to...
They might be self-aware.
Well, hello, Hunter.
Mr. Daniel.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right, I think.
Good.
Yeah, I'm going with all right.
That's good. I've been thinking a lot about the movie The Fifth Element lately. You remember
It was a good
that?
film? Yeah.
It was a good
I've
film.
Seen it several times.
Lulu Dallas, Multipass, and all that. There's a bit early in the movie where Corbin Dallas is driving around in his flying car.
The taxi.
Let's take flying cars. Yeah, taxi. Yeah. We'll come back to those another time. One of these years, we're finally going to get him. But he's flying around. He's bumping into stuff. It's the whole scene where Lulu kind of falls in and he's trying to recover and eventually hide her off to the side somewhere. I think there's one point where he rips a computer out of the dashboard because it's telling him that he has no points left on his license because it's automatically dinging him every time he does something.
Right, they have
illegal.
like a social credit score concept in the film.
Yeah, right. So it's a little bit dystopian, but it's definitely like an evolution of the kinds of things that we're starting to see more in the world, where there are more sensors, more cameras, more ability to help you stay within the law. And the other side of that coin is help find out when you're breaking the law, right?
In theory.
In theory. And I think I know how we get from where we are to the Fifth Element, or at least, in the direction of ripping the computer out of your car because it keeps yelling at you for going over your point allotment. I saw a big electronic billboard in real life recently that said that there was a silver alert, which generally means that someone with, silver hair, an older person has gone AWOL, whether it be from a nursing home or from their family or whatever, and we want to find this person, bring them back. Silver alert, such and such car, license plate, XYZ, whatever it is. If we had a cohesive working set of cameras all over the road, and I know there are cameras basically all over the place, because any toll road that you're going on has multiple ones to take pictures of your license plate as you go through. If we had a comprehensive set of cameras all over the place, or if every car had a GPS in it and it's keyed to whatever your license plate is and is uploading that, surely this kind of problem, Amber Alerts as well, you sure don't want those going on any longer than necessary. There is a world where we can get to a point where that becomes a trivial issue. The technology is there for it. But
do you want to live in that world?
Exactly, because making that easy is almost exactly the same as all of these privacy concerns that are extremely well-founded for a wide variety of reasons. And so I've been trying to wrap my head around, is there a way to get the one without getting the other? Can we help find the silver and amber alerts and so on without tracking everybody all the time? And I don't know. Do you? How do we thread that needle, if at all?
Well, the problem with recording everything that has existed for quite some time, I think London was one of the first cities that just blanketed the entire city in cameras. But just now you have an ungodly amount of footage, and you need some way of identifying things that are potentially interesting. And at least when they started theirs, which was I'd have to look it up. I mean, I feel like way more than 10 years ago, maybe like 15 years ago. It was all off of the audio. They were listening to the audio, and they did have an algorithm that would try to identify angry people, gunshots, that type of noise. And so there was a group of, I'm going to call them hackers for lack of a better word, but in like a good way. But they would go and play children's nursery rhymes into the cameras so that they wouldn't be recorded. It's just like this. We have the same thing now with even with the AI, where people wear those shirts with like the weird patterns on them. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Right. It's one of those things where like you put a little strip of tape on a stop sign, and all of a sudden any trained machine learning algorithm doesn't see it as a stop sign. So if I put a diagonal stripe on my shirt, I'm a zebra walking around or something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, there are ways to exploit these systems to identify the things that are interesting, but I don't know, yeah, we go back to that. Like again, but do you want to live in the world where everything is recorded every time you walk out of the house? You're on camera, although at the same time confronted by the fact that it's largely true already.
Right.
Like I'm just walking down the sidewalk and I look up and you see the street lights and you're like, hold on a second, is that a camera? And the answer is yes. There's a camera in a lot of street lights today. Just there. And so
it's just they're not talking to each other efficiently. Yeah. And therein lies the problem and I guess the solution.
Maybe.
Yeah. But also most of us have cell phones on us most of the time. And those things are very connected to the internet.
Yeah. Certainly lots of conspiracy theories that suggest that certain powers that be can get access to those cameras and microphones.
Yep.
But it's certainly possible if you can root or gain complete access to the system, and we've certainly seen flaws in these systems that allow that type of access. So the suggestion that agencies would have that access is plausible. There's nothing to stop it other than potentially legislative challenges.
Then that would definitely stop them. I'm sure especially the conspiracy-minded folks would say, yeah, that'll definitely put a final end to all of that.
Maybe not.
Well, fortunately, there's no evidence that not just the three-letter agencies, but also like huge conglomerates and corporations like Amazon are doing things like this, right?
Right. I don't know. I was going to say they've gotten in trouble, but there's been a lot of people having concerns over police agencies licensing their facial recognition technology. Right. And going back and forth and saying, okay, we won't let them use it. But it's all kind of silly because, I mean, Amazon allows the government agencies and defense contractors to leverage its server resources, and it has its own sort of AWS cloud, GovCloud, all for them. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't, but the idea that, this one little bit of technology, our facial recognition API, we're not going to let the government have access to that because, we're for the people. We want our technology to be used for good.
Yeah. And that used for good, or at least the attempts at it, you and I saw an article about Amazon-powered AI cameras. And I say Amazon-powered in quotation marks because it turns out it's just AWS is the background. It's not really an Amazon doing this.
This isn't another grocery store.
It's going to be a cloud provider.
Debacle, is it? Is it really just a team in India?
So I don't know if that's the case. The gist of this, and it was I'm not even going to call it an article. It was basically a blurb just saying, like, Amazon AI cameras using to detect emotions of unwitting train passengers in the UK. Okay, that's a fun, scary headline. The article was about 3 sentences long, but there was a link to some leaked documents from the Network Rail folks, and I gave it a read. Well, a skim, shall we say.
Okay.
And what they're describing in it is I don't know if it is almost what I'm imagining as a best use case scenario for this kind of thing. It's not immediately identifying people by their faces, despite the headline. It's also not just a camera where some guy has to look at it and say, yup, I saw a crime happen. It is kind of that middle of the road, which is they're detecting that somebody is trespassing on tracks or going over walls and fences. That's just object detection and is something in a part of the frame where it's not supposed to be. My camera doorbell has the same sort of thing of like, ignore movement in this part of the frame, only show me when someone's moving over here. So that, and then a different one is detecting crowding situations on platforms and concourses. That seems like super useful information rather than having a person who has to sit there and like manually freeze frame and count how many people are on the platform every 15 minutes. Yeah, use machine learning for that. The third major use case, the priority use case that they have on this leaked document is accident mitigation, detecting accidents and the causes of accidents, like slippery floors and suitcases on escalators. This seems like really good data, and it also seems like a perfect use case for you have a camera that's already here anyways. There's probably a security guy whose whole job it is to be looking at this, but also have machine learning flag certain events or automatically count the number of people. It doesn't say anything about, and then look up that person in a police database. It's just, is there a person somewhere? Did someone comically slip and a bunch of papers fly up in the air because they slipped next to a wet floor sign? Maybe that's what we need to do, is kind of an anonymized AI. Forget faces. Literally ignore faces. We don't worry about that. We worry about all the other stuff.
The question is, do I feel more comfortable with being recorded at all times if there's some guarantee that none of it is directly tied to my identity, and in fact the characteristics that uniquely identify me as me are scrubbed at the hardware level and never recorded? You know, your thumbprints are effectively erased, your face is just a white blob, they slightly alter your gait so it can't be messed with,
sure,
etc. You're just a human.
Right.
Human
67B-5 or whatever. Is that more palatable? Because, and I asked the question, because we're going to be recorded anyways. There's nothing really you or I are going to be able to do realistically on a short time scale other than vote against these kinds of things to cause it from happening. But if it's going to be a recording, does it make it easier on you? Does your soul feel lighter if it's aggregate statistics, if it's just detecting that a person was where they weren't supposed to be, as opposed to Hunter Powers was where he wasn't supposed to be? It seems like a slam dunk from the privacy side of things, but there is still kind of the ick factor of knowing that you are being watched, right?
Right. And if it was also not admissible in court.
That's a thought.
So, yes.
So,
cities, governments,
there's a bit of legal backing behind it where even if they say they're not, but they actually are keeping all of that data, if it couldn't be used against you in court.
You can't use that in court. A human has to have come there and seen it and have some evidence that they saw it. You can't play the video. You can't suggest that that was them. You can say that that's how, I got basically a call saying something was going down here. And so then we came in and we observed this.
I really like this solution. This plays very nicely into what we've discussed previously, which is we're getting to a point where truth from video is not going to be able to be realistically determined too much longer. So forget deep fakes of a celebrity doing some sort of, weird act online. This is, whatever. I'm trying to keep it family friendly here. Or, politician shaking hands with some, dictator, whatever it is. Instead, this could be just your average person on some extremely accurate looking CCTV footage doing an illegal act. And I don't know for sure, but I would suspect today, here is CCTV footage of Hunter Powers stealing purses out of a window front of a store.
Right.
That could be used against you today. But if you say CCTV footage, blanket statement can't be used against people in a court of law anymore. It had to be someone actually saw you.
Someone, fingerprints, physical evidence, but the video footage,
right,
due to multiple things, including the fact that it can be faked so easily, and the fact that we benefit so much from it as a society that we're willing to accept this, is not admissible in a court of law. And then I have several speeding tickets and red light camera tickets that I would... no, because I know where the cameras are, so I know how to slow down.
Right. So yeah, it seems to me like this sits well with me. I think that I could go for that. You could still use the ML detection to say a crime happened here. Go send Hercule Poirot to go, investigate and pull the one thread. Ah, French accent. I see that it was Hunter's hair that we found. I think that is that thread of the needle right there. We use the machine learning algorithms to empower people to do the kinds of jobs that they should be doing anyways, as opposed to taking agency away from people. You can't just say RoboCop saw some footage of Hunter doing this thing, slam him in jail. You have to actually still go through a full process.
Yep. I've read about more and more.
We did it. We solved it, ladies and gents.
Police agencies deploying drones where when they get a call that something's happening in an area, they send the drone up, which can get there rather quickly and start providing video surveillance. Makes a lot of logical sense to me. And I was just trying to think through, well, would that footage be admissible? But no, the whole idea here is, no, video footage is not admissible anymore. You got video of someone doing something, great, but you can't play it in a court of law.
You mentioned the police. I'm immediately backpedaling on my having liked this because body cams for police, I would feel, at least broadly, have been a very good thing as they've been implemented. If we were to suddenly say, all right, those don't count anymore, oops, that's definitely a good use case that I think we're losing all of a sudden.
They would not be admissible in a court of law. You'd still have the testimony and the physical evidence if someone was roughed up and they say they were roughed up. But I don't know. There are pros and cons of everything.
There are. I'm starting to see why lawyers often end up getting paid so much when they're helping draft all these laws, because this stuff's complicated. So but you know what isn't complicated?
Okay, go ahead.
That's a good segue, right?
Yeah.
You know what isn't complicated? Is telling when a person is speaking as opposed to a robot, an AI.
Is this the uncanny valley argument?
I think so. I think it's that we are currently in the uncanny valley. We used to be at a point where a synthesized voice was very obviously not a person. Now we're getting into a point where you're adding in emotion. It's really sounding a lot closer to people, but there's some bit of the human soul that isn't quite in the voice yet, that supposedly most people, according to a University of Zurich set of researchers, a paper that came out, that human brains react differently. It's not just, oh, I think this is a person. It's like our brains literally are working differently when they hear deepfake voices compared to natural ones. I think that's really interesting, and I think we can get out of the uncanny valley and quote unquote solve that problem, or make it worse, as the case may be. But we're in the uncanny valley, and that shows the progress that we've made.
So the idea is that today there are, we'll call them deepfake voices that when humans are listening to them, they state that they're unable to distinguish it between the real voice. I don't know if is that real or is it manipulated. However, when they're analyzing their brains, they're seeing different areas light up that are suggesting that their brains are reacting differently to the deepfake one than they are to the real one. So while they're not processing it as, hey, something's weird here, their brains are detecting something.
Sort of. So it's said that the deepfake voices were corrected about 2/3 of the time, and that the nucleus accumbens, which is part of the reward system, and the auditory cortex, which does processing of acoustic differences, were the brain regions that were notably active with these deepfake voices. And it was highlighting our resilience to fake information, possibly. I mean, that's, the conjecture side of things. But is it just that there's something about this sound that our brains say, oh, that isn't human speech. It's this other thing that sounds like human speech.
Yeah. I'm reminded of, you were mentioning movies earlier. When you go back and watch an old movie that you remember the special effects as being phenomenal, photorealistic.
Absolutely.
Then you go back.
The original Toy Story.
Yeah.
Photorealistic.
Incredible. Then you go back and you're like, this is horrible. This is just a bunch of bad green screen. In fact, you can see the bad matte. For me, it was Jurassic Park. Going back to when I saw Jurassic Park in theaters.
How dare you? Jurassic Park absolutely holds up.
Photorealism. But when you go back, you're like, what? It's still good, but
they used practical effects as much as possible in that movie. I mean, I haven't seen it in a bit, but I will defend it. I'm going to go back and I'll watch it and I'll let you know.
Yeah, so I wonder if there's something about our brains develop over time to detect this as well. So while today some of these things seem indistinguishable or almost indistinguishable, in 10 years when we listen back to the 11 Labs generated audio, we're like, oh my gosh. Oh, that is horrible.
Well, I don't know what the age groups that they were looking at for this study, but I would suspect if you were to take the elderly and the very young and do this same test on them, they wouldn't get it nearly as much. I remember reading a couple of things about VR and children, and one of the reasons why you're not supposed to have kids using VR is that they literally don't know that that's not real, that they're watching. I don't know if that's actually true or up to what age or whatever, but like, I have a very young kid, and she definitely, you know, there's a very wibbly wobbly gray area between what is real and what is not. And a lot of, especially older folks, seem to be less resilient to certain types of misinformation. An AI-generated voice could be, in certain circumstances, absolutely spewing misinformation. So I think that in a very clinical setting, hey, here is a snippet on its own, is this real or is this not, is very different from I'm seeing a Facebook post by famous blogger or politician or this or that telling you to buy this new cryptocurrency and you'll get a 10x return. I think that those are very different things. Or like a child being exposed to, I don't even know, just some sort of weird brainwashing thing via the VR headset that they're not supposed to be watching, that they absolutely believe is true. I think that, like,
are kids really that stupid that they think?
No, not stupid. They haven't tuned their algorithm to be able to see what is real versus what isn't.
But they must understand they put something on their head and then the entire reality around them changed. I can buy that. You could convince a kid, no, you actually you were on the roller coaster. When you put that on, you weren't here anymore. You disappeared out of this room and you were actually there on the roller coaster. Then when you take the headset back off, you then magically appear back in the room. I buy that I can convince a little kid that. I don't buy that the kid defaults to thinking that's what's happening.
I hope that that's not the case. Maybe that's just the folks at Meta trying to be very cautious of like, look, don't put your kids in this. Maybe they'll think it's too real. But even if they don't think that VR is real, they might be thinking that certain voices are. We've talked a little bit about needing to have like a safe word or phrase with your family for, oh, it's me, your father. I'm in a Honduran prison and I need you to wire me $10,000 of Google Play cards or they won't let me go. These kinds of things are going to absolutely become more realistic and more common. And I think that this research is really important, that we start to figure out whether it be in our brains, if it's just in our subconscious, can we make people resilient against this? And I know we've talked about it before as well, but we need to have education about misinformation, education about AI, education about what all of the possibilities are here so that people are aware of what could be being done to them. Just like you and I have had to do for every job we've ever been in of, here's your cybersecurity training, this is what a phishing email looks like, learn to find the signs. 5 years from now, I think it's going to be, certainly in certain workplaces, but hopefully kind of everywhere, here is basically a class to take to learn what sort of signs to look for these things. And of course, it's an arms race and it's always evolving, but we need to learn to adapt to misinformation coming our way. Fakes, deep or otherwise.
Yes. And I think it's much simpler than we make it out to be, which is essentially you can't trust anything unless you can confirm it. And you probably shouldn't trust anything unless it's cryptographically signed by a person that you trust. So in a workplace setting in the future, if that email from your boss is cryptographically signed by your boss, then go ahead and act as if it came from your boss. If it's not cryptographically signed, we don't act. And then like the whole part about figuring out, well, is that a deep fake of my boss or my real boss? It just goes away. And yes, education, that is very easy to fake your boss in 10 seconds of audio. We've now recreated your entire job environment.
I think from a mechanical perspective, a technical perspective, that probably is a very good way of assigning reality to something that's been created by somebody. But considering that to this day, a lot of people will just click any link in their email and say, like, this is definitely me, your boss, click here. They'll click it, and now they've got a virus on their computer. I don't feel as confident that that would at least immediately be able to be embraced by everybody without some education. But speaking of education, sort of, people...
We love the transitions.
I'm really on fire today, except this wasn't a good one, but I'm going to forge forward as if it was. This education as to what's real versus what's not. Meta is incorrectly marking some real photos as made by AI. And it's not just Meta. Other people are grabbing their pitchforks and their torches and coming after real artists, saying AI made this, whether it be a tag on a Facebook post or a bunch of extremely upset people coming after a Dungeons and Dragons cover art artist. Real artists are now being hounded for making AI art when they didn't. And I think it's like the weird inverse, but still the same problem of what everyone imagined would happen. Instead of taking away their jobs, now we're telling people with the jobs that they're not doing it when they actually are.
There's kind of a style to AI art. And right, like if we just say a robot eating an apple, and you send it into the various image generators, there are similarities amongst the images that come out, and they are distinctively different than if you asked a random artist to render a robot eating an apple. So I do think people are starting to pick up on the generic style of AI art. Generic's probably a good word for it. And you have to do some work if you're trying to develop a unique style within that realm. And then there's the other people that just think it's too good and was made too quickly. Then AI. Yeah,
too good or too quickly, or you're not good enough at drawing hands. And I think you're right that the like sort of Meta, not the company, but like this overall ingestion of all of the art ever, let's make something that can make art. There is a bit of a style to that, but there are ways to make it emulate other styles, or there are LoRa's, low order ranking adapters, that you can like add on top of these things to say make it in this kind of style instead.
Right. You absolutely can generate AI art that is very unique and has a very unique style that you will not find in other readily available materials.
Yep. But you can also make real art, and people will accuse you of faking it. And speaking of that kind of cryptographic signing, is it on the artist to take screenshots of in progress? Are you required to do that? Do you have to be able to show the video of you making the additions to it and erasing this region and putting together your color palette and figuring it? Do you have to show your work? To have art at this point?
Absolutely not. But
that's what the Dungeons and Dragons cover artist did. She showed, here's the video of me doing it. Like, please get off my back. Literally, here's me making it. And if that's the only way to get the pitchfork wielding masses off your back, I feel like we're in a bit of a problematic state.
And I have a camera that again the actual camera hardware cryptographically signs the image when I capture it, and it's supported in the Adobe suite. So if I go through and open it up in Photoshop and make some edits, those edits are recorded and also signed, and so you can see that digital footprint of everything that's happened to that image, including here is the original image that was captured. So similarly to this, I guess, digital artist having that record, that almost blockchain of events that happen, I think it's valuable, but there's no reason that it should be required.
I don't think it should be required either. But other people apparently seem to. If you can't draw hands right, or you draw something that was a little too close to, I bet that I could make Stable Diffusion make that, all of a sudden people are going to start threatening your livelihood and trying to get you fired and giving all kinds of baseless accusations against you.
So why do they care? Is it that they think, well, if it's AI generated, I should be paying less money? Or it's that they think only real humans should be employed to do this? So
it runs the gamut, but I think that second one is probably close to a broad strokes approximation of what the complaint is. And so literally the person who was hired for money to make this thing is being accused of the thing that they probably also see a problem with, which is, people using AI to make the art instead. Of course, we've also discussed a little bit, tools like Photoshop have machine learning powered tools in them. There's like the smart erase type features. Photoshop is adding in some generative AI filler type features as well. This is becoming
I use it on every thumbnail.
It's becoming a tool that is used by everybody. And I think that's the direction that generative AI has to go. It's not going to replace everything. It needs to be one of the tools in the toolbox. But a lot of people see it very much in vogue right now to hear AI, meaning generative AI, especially as it relates to art, is bad and it shouldn't have any place in. I don't know. I think some of this is just the angry mob grabbing its pitchforks at any opportunity. Will this problem go away once generative AI is more integrated into the tool sets and we're all used to it?
Or once AGI is here and kind of ever present? Is there a split in society where there's these certain groups that want to live in the world before AGI and these that live in the world after? Obviously, yes, that will exist, but the question is it anything more than the tiniest of tiny minority? 1/3 of 1% of people refuse to acknowledge the AI and don't want anything AI generated in their world.
And if the AI Amish, where they say everything before this point is fine, everything after it isn't.
Yeah.
Sure. I could see that. It could become a cult. Speaking of cults, no, I really wish I had a segue for that one. If we can't trust
cults of personality, maybe.
There you go. If we can't trust that something that is being uttered was by a real person or not, at least a portion of the time already, and we can't trust that whether we're seeing something is or isn't from a real person, what do you feel about so there was the singer who lost their voice, new vocal tracks, talked about that.
Right.
Now Al Michaels is going to be delivering Olympic recaps on Peacock. Not Al Michaels, an AI version of Al Michaels. Is that good?
Potentially, but I, if you ask me, the AI is not good enough yet to do that. I don't want to go to the AI Elvis concert where AI Elvis hologram gets up and sings, and because I don't feel. I mean, it's interesting from a technical perspective, but it's not good enough yet. But
but he's still alive. So in the case of, I'm sorry, who's the country singer that we were talking about? Gonna have his,
I believe it was Randy Travis. He had his voice. We'll call it.
Thank you. Yes,
cloned.
Randy Travis. So Randy Travis isn't dead, but lost his voice, right? And so this is empowering someone who no longer could do a thing.
So it's an AI voice box. The I am not really here people.
Sure.
Did you ever have that person in school? Did they come in? They've got the hole in their throat and
they
show
you not to smoke
cigarettes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Do not smoke cigarettes. But I just remember we thought I don't know, we were like 8 or 9. We thought it was cool. We're like, oh, look at that thing, man. I wanted to talk.
Be a cyborg. Hell yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I am not. You should not talk. You do not smoke cigarettes. We just went around all day doing that. I think it was not at all effective. But anyways, today there should be a new version of that where they can speak like Randy Travis.
Right.
They can speak like Mike Tyson.
But Al Michaels isn't dead. This isn't a AI hologram of Tupac up on stage. This isn't, he lost his voice. I'm pretty sure he's still an active commentator. Why would you want an AI version of him delivering recaps on the Olympics? Is it that he's too busy, but we really wanted Al Michaels?
He's very old. I wonder if they're going to present, Al Michaels in his prime delivering this commentary. I wonder if it's all just a marketing gimmick,
Well,
powered
it
by
is.
AWS.
So this is a marketing gimmick because they're saying that it's personalized daily recaps of the Paris Olympics for like individual users. So you get your own Al Michaels telling you about the sports that you particularly cared about or the athletes that you've been following. I feel like there's this parasocial relationship that a lot of people have with content creators, and I think it's more of a thing with like YouTubers or live play D&D folks or something like that, where you're supposed to really feel like you're in the room with them. Al Michaels is a commentator. He's like on TV. There isn't really the parasocial relationship. You're not in the room with Al Michaels as he talks to you. He's on TV. And I don't think this is the correct use of personalization here. I don't need a news anchor being like, hey, Daniel, the person who I know, you're going to love what I have to say about these 5 athletes. I don't know if that's uncanny valley or just like, I don't want that. I don't want it. I don't want that. I don't want it. I don't want it.
For another film reference,
I'm very not into this idea.
you talked about the film The Game before, which is a really good David Fincher film. And that film, Michael Douglas is watching I think it was like the financial news, and the person on there his financial news gets very personalized.
Yep.
But yes, that's an interesting. So in the future, when you're watching news, will personalized news in the form of them directly addressing you become part of it? It feels very plausible.
Feels very not great to me. Even if it's plausible, even if it could be slightly more tuned to my preferences, I don't think I want my own news anchor. I'll take an RSS feed. That I'm fine with. I don't want a well-known internet or national whatever like commentator that everyone's kind of aware of. Now I get him. That feels wrong.
Why? Is it that you trust it even less? It's just like it's scratching the wrong itch?
As someone who works in the field, I would trust the underlying like AI ability to summarize articles or whatever. I have no problem with that. And then you can hook that up to a text to speech and then map that to the moving head that looks kind of realistic from a technology perspective. I don't see anything quote unquote wrong with it. It's that if you're going to have it like addressing you, if it's customized to your wants and your needs, you're getting it from someone that isn't personalized. Like you mentioned kind of the Elvis thing from before. And I've seen some, cutesy little like flash animations years ago of like, oh, it's so-and-so. And he's like and the arms are poorly animated and dancing around like, oh, it's Elvis singing to you. Daniel, bop, bop, bop. That I think is fine. Maybe this is the uncanny valley where it really kind of squicks me out. But I don't want, a well-known celebrity or like especially a news anchor or something where that person generally speaks to kind of everybody. And now I get my own version of them and they get their own version of them and they get their own version of them. Like it's a stay in your lane kind of thing.
Or I wonder if it's actually kind of isolating because you're no longer part of this sort of broader community that you are when they're addressing everyone.
When I watch Al Michaels, I know I'm getting everyone else's Al Michaels and what he thinks, what Al Michaels really thinks about that sports guy that I particularly care about.
Right. Versus having your own experience that no one else has had. No one else. Everyone saw a different game last night based upon the commentary, so you can't then go around the old water fountain and discuss it anymore.
Yeah, there are a lot of cameras, speaking of, kind of bringing that full circle, around like a basketball court. And what if, based on, eye movement, you've got camera in your house and it's watching like what part of the game that you're watching? What if instead of some guy in a control room somewhere figuring out which camera angle is being shown where, you had a completely customized game that is designed to keep you maximally engaged, probably maximally engaged with a percentage of the screen taken up by ads as possible. I don't think that's better.
Single player games are different because they're already single player.
Oh no, I meant like a televised, it was a real NBA game, right, and you saw different angles, different longer shots, different recaps based on what was going to keep you maximally eyeballs on the screen, preferably if there's ads in the background.
We do this to some degree with, it's not uncommon for there to be different coverage for a sports game depending upon where you live, because
sure,
it's usually regionalized and what team you're going to favor. And it's not uncommon for them to have multiple audio streams focused on different teams and being broadcast in different areas. So personalization of live sporting events beyond just translation is already
happens,
but not down to the individual. Very far from that.
Even the Super Bowl has, within individual regions, a very short amount of time for local ads. But what if it was more hyper-local? What if it was, a Charmin commercial pops up and the bear turns to the screen and says, "Daniel, don't you want to..." I don't want that.
But there's no way it's not going to happen.
Because the
right?
Charmin bear should be talking to everybody.
But there's no way it's not going to happen.
My own Charmin bear. There's the tagline for the episode. I don't. And so that's like customized AI versions of other people kind of coming at us. What about the opposite direction? Instagram's going to start letting people make AI versions of themselves to put out there, which good for them for embracing it, right? Yeah. Chatbot versions, but people are already deep faking, whether it be themselves or some fake hot woman to put a bunch of pictures up to get a bunch of followers to probably try and sell the account or whatever. Like, at least they're embracing it and trying to own it themselves. But
yeah, I know the Zoom CEO has said they're working on allowing you to bring a digital version of yourself to meetings.
Yeah,
it's certainly been my fantasy for a very long time.
Right.
So yeah, it's inevitable, but also it's the end of something. Once it's all just our avatars out there, and maybe that's like the good part about it is that once our avatars are watching their personalized, coverage of the news, like we get back to the truth, we get back to the real world, like we break free of the technology. The technology can exist over here, engaged in itself, doing all those things, and we for an hour a week we hop in for a little bit of entertainment, but it's all sort of consuming of itself, or maybe it ruins itself.
I'm all right with that.
I think that's...
Let the snake eat its own tail.
That's possible. That's plausible.
Yeah. I do think that's going to get ever more tuned to be more engaging, as opposed to let our AI be the one that's engaged while we go out and actually interact with the world. Tabloid magazines have been around a long time before Instagram was.
Yeah.
So this conversation that we've kind of had a few times of a real versus a non-real entity online. Mm-hmm. Think of Twitter, or X, I guess. Twitter. A large portion of it, or if, depending on who you are, almost none of it, are bots. Bots.
That's
a whole bunch of the Twitter sphere ain't real, right?
Absolutely. Now, I don't understand when Elon purchased Twitter, one of his big things was, I'm going to get rid of the bots. There's tons and tons of bots. In fact, he spent a long time to try to expose that maybe 1/3 of their user base were bots in order to get the optimal price. And that was one of his, passionate commitments. But I feel I still use it.
Absolutist too, right?
What?
Nothing. The free speech absolutist stuff, and then he starts immediately banning people he doesn't like.
Sure. But the chatbots, so I use X, I read it every single day. I would say that they're definitely no better, and they're probably worse than they were before. And I don't understand why that is, and why it's so hard to...
Yeah, I've seen some articles where they identify these 10 specific accounts are the source of... This is the headwaters of the misinformation river. And, people can find these things, and yet they're allowed to exist, proliferate, etc. I I like the idea of Instagram being able to make like a chatbot version of yourself so that you could imagine. I guess it's almost like a customer service thing. Like you could imagine an Instagram account for a restaurant that you follow to help with reservations, to help give information about the menu. Hey, is this allergen supported, this, that, whatever. I see like there's a lot of possibility there. For individuals, we've had a lot of talks about like the fake version of yourself being able to interact. I guess I have to be okay with that because it's certainly going to happen. But I don't know. What if there weren't that? What if not that? What if Twitter, X, and Instagram and so on just didn't have bots? What if it went back to it's just actually people? Would that be better at this point? I'd blanket statement say yes.
My assumption is yes. And that's because I see so much bad content that is very obviously a bot that has responded instantly with something that has nothing to do with the discussion and is just basically clickbaiting to get you to go to someplace else or buy something or follow some other account. They're just it's an ad, and it's obvious that it's an ad that was generated. So, but the question is, okay, so remove all of that. That's an easy yes. I'm sure that some percentage of the good content, the engaging content, is AI generated. And I've seen a number of services now that the idea is that you have a business that you want to promote. They search things like Reddit to find every thread that is partially related. And then they use something like a ChatGPT to generate a response and creatively plug their product as part of the solution. And I've seen several examples that feel very human. And so the question is, the question that I don't know is what percentage of the content that I enjoy is human generated. I assume it's very, very high. Oh, I'm 98% in favor of the humans. But what if 50% of what I enjoy, no human ever touched? And do I actually have a problem with that?
That's the whole dead internet theory, right? Where it's not really people talking to one another at this point.
Well, the Snap engineers, they a few engineers that came from Snap, they're starting a new social network where the idea is that you have an AI version of you on there. They're trying to sort of, I guess, embrace some of this that can so your AI self can interact with other posts and write comments on them. And I would assume that they would label that, but I don't actually know.
Now, this isn't supposed to be you. It's supposed to be an AI persona that you made.
That's
right?
correct.
Maybe there's something that I keep trying to grasp onto of like there's something special about me, even though I've also talked about what if I just automated myself for my own job. But yeah, for a social network, I don't want something to be me on there. I would be much more fine with Daniel made this AI personality that can go kind of do its own thing.
Is that because you want plausible deniability?
Yeah, maybe. I certainly don't want AI Daniel to be accidentally spouting some, racist stuff or whatever and getting real Daniel into some trouble.
Right. If AI Daniel was creating an awesome if AI Daniel really like understood the essence of who is Daniel Bishop and created a community around that and lots of insights and jokes that was all perfectly in line with what you would write if you had a week to think about how to respond to every post and provide the most help and also keep it entertaining, and it built up this flourishing community that really was representative, sure, of the real Daniel Bishop. You probably wouldn't have a problem with that. You may even like that and think, yeah, that's probably pretty good. If someone wants to get to know me and engage with me, they can talk to my AI bot.
I guess that's not too different from like a ghostwriter helping write books for you, on your behalf, or people who use moderators for their own online communities, just logged in as them responding to things. Like, I suppose not, but still, I think, at least personally, I want my own online presence to have come from me. I can see the novelty behind being part of a network where some of the things there aren't real. And especially if they're labeled as these ones aren't people, these ones are people, cryptographically signed this and that and the other thing. But yeah, I think I'd go on that as myself.
I know there's the suggestion that many celebrities, online, they're not the ones who are actually doing the tweeting or the posting or whatever the correct words are.
Yeah, they've got a social media manager for that.
And we as a society seem to be very accepting of that. And in the past, we've talked about some of these digital influencers who are very clearly computer generated and posting various things. And the popular ones get a ton of interaction from people writing back to them. Oh, that's great. I can't believe you did this. And by the way, maybe all that's AI generated too. I don't know. But it seems like
bought from a farm.
It seems like a lot of people, I'm sure not everyone, but are very willing to like just be, oh no, I don't care that they're AI generated. Like they can still be my friend. Like we can interact, we can have a relationship. People seem open to having these relationships, and while we assume that the fact that it's a real person matters in the relationship, maybe it doesn't nearly as much as we think it does.
Is there anything that has to be real at that point? Could you just, instead of it being, I visited the Taj Mahal or I went to this famous beach, could you instead, so as context, Runway, one of the AI video generators, just released their version 3 alpha. And one of the first things that I saw out of that is a fake BBC small documentary about another planet. Instead of BBC Earth or whatever, it's BBC Universe, and it takes place 400 years in the future. But like, it sounds just like a BBC documentary where they're showcasing some aspect of the Earth, but it's, some fanciful planet name in another solar system with a lot of crazy mud baths, and it can like reincarnate people. The concept is kind of wild. But honestly, this person had put together, and I know a person was involved in like the editing and adding post effects and so on, and generating this stuff via Runway 3.
Yeah.
Still, it was like a 5-minute long little mini documentary about another world that doesn't exist. I watched the whole thing, and I was thoroughly entertained by it, and I'd watch more of it. And so maybe it could be an Instagram model, or maybe it could be David Attenborough, or maybe it could just be a new personality that never existed but is a travelogue person from the 25th century, and they're going to exotic places and doing travelogues about them. I don't know. I'm into that. So and what is the difference between watching that and enjoying it versus some Instagram model on a beach that actually does exist, but the thing is not really real? Maybe there's nothing. I guess there's nothing. There's
definitely a cohort of people that believes that this all ends with the simulation theory. The one that suggests that potentially we are living in a simulation because we are creating these simulations that are becoming increasingly lifelike. And so if we imagine that we will one day get to the point where you've suggested that potentially with children we already can. We can create an alternative reality that is indistinguishable from this reality.
Matrix.
If that is the future, then there is a significant probability that we are already living in it. Elon Musk, at least publicly, has suggested that he's a strong believer in this concept, potentially just for marketing, or potentially he strongly believes it. But there's again a cohort of people that believe that part of the end game of all this AI when we reach AGI is the revelation that it is all just a simulation, that there doesn't matter. And talk to the AI, talk to the person. It's all the same.
It's all simulations.
It's all the same.
I did a little bit of introspection, and I think I kind of figured out what's at the core of my discomfort with some of this. So the social network butterflies, where you can have AIs and humans coexisting, and I seemed okay with that. And I don't like the Instagram models on real beaches that don't actually exist. I think it's the disingenuousness of it. If you're going to lie to people In you're presenting fiction as nonfiction. I think that's where my problem is. If you instead are going to present something as fictional work, this is there's a big AI
Instagram.
symbol.
What percentage of Instagram isn't fiction?
Sure. A lot of that is at least through a heavy lens, a filter. And maybe that's my problem with Instagram in general. I'm not really on that network, and I think that kind of shows there. But yeah, I think it's the disingenuousness of it all. So if you're going to, I don't mind there being a Daniel Bishop AI building a community around Daniel Bishop, as long as we know that thing building the community wasn't actually me. As long as it has a little, instead of a TM symbol, it's an AI symbol,
right?
Superscript up top. I think that's where my line is you have to present it as what it is. If it's not real, say that's not real. If you maybe there's what do we do with your Photoshop type examples or whatnot? Do you just have to say this was literally completely hand done versus it literally was not completely hand done it and there's no in between? Or do you have to show a little pie graph where there's a slice of how much machine learning was involved at some point? I don't know what that solution is, but I do think that the thing for me is if you're going to lie, at least let me know that it was a lie. And then I'm okay with it.
And see, I think in that argument, I'm on the side of it's all lies. I've accepted that it's all lies. And now, let's just move on.
Let's close the computer.
It's all lies.
None of this is real. Yeah.
And if it's not all lies, the argument is subtlety.
Let's just go outside into the digital sunshine and enjoy the simulation.
Accept that it's lies, and then do with it what you want. If you enjoy reading this and it's fun and it's intellectually stimulating or entertaining or relaxing, do it. But don't do it because it's the truth, because it isn't. If you want the truth, you need to go and experience the truth yourself, and it's not through this thing that you're reading or watching or.
If it's on a screen, don't trust it. Go out and enjoy real life. Enjoy the stuff on the screen too, but don't think any of it's real.
Correct, because it's all simulation.
Well, I know one thing. I know that we're real, and what you've been listening to today is real.
On episode 21. 21, we can drink now.
The podcast can drink.
The podcast.
If corporations can be people, I think podcasts can drink.
We need to create an AI agent that is enjoying its 21st birthday. Yes, I think. We'll see about that for the next episode.
How old is Morton, by the way? I don't think he's told us, but he has kind of a youthful appearance.
Yeah, probably late 20s.
You think so?
I think so.
Yeah,
that's my theory, anyways. There's some rumblings from Morton in the background.
Oh no!
I've been getting some messages. They're a little.
Yeah.
It's not clear, but I would not be surprised if
pretty cryptic.
There's a video from Morton sometime in the near future. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching episode 21 of They Might Be Self-Aware. Again, I am Hunter Powers, joined by
Daniel Bishop.
Daniel Bishop. If you have not hit that subscribe button already, time is running out. All you got to do is hit it. It's free. Shows a little bit of support, and you always will know when a new episode, not personalized just for you, but personalized for this community, is available on all the major platforms. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you experience this media, we are probably somewhere floating around. So please make that part of your thing. And as always, we will be back next week with more insights and ruminations on the nature of I don't know, really everything. But I guess until next time.
They might be self-aware.